Hello, welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melody Parrish, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. For the month of February, we are talking about love, of course. And today, in this episode, I want to talk about love for those that are different than we are. Love for those that have different characteristics, that have different expressions, that have different emotions, different physical characteristics, or different cultures than we do. And I want to talk about how we need to appreciate those differences. First, we need to love them, but we also need to appreciate them as well and appreciate the depth that it adds to our lives. To know these individuals and to be around these individuals. And at this time, I think it's so important for us to learn this concept, to experience this concept, because there's so much negativity and hatred in this world right now. And the only way, I've said it before, the only way to make hatred and negativity go is to shine light and positivity in love in that direction. And so I want to talk today also continuing on to our non-binary way of thinking, like not just an us and them. And this time I want to talk about not an us and them, but a we, because we are human beings. It's not an us and them, but it's a we. We need to come together. We need to look at each other and see the differences and love them and cherish them, cherish those differences, appreciate those differences. You know, I think about my life and my experiences and the wonderful individuals I've met, my friends, that they're all so different than I am, but yet we're so similar. There's so much that intertwines us, that connects us, whether it's our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, our likes, our dislikes. There's so many different things. And I think a lot about what my life would be if I didn't have these individuals in it. And I can guarantee you my life would be so dark and would be so sad. And, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I do not want people to be like me in my life. I do not want people in my life that are exactly like me, because then that's one perspective of the world. And if you have one perspective of the world, you can't grow. There's no growth in one perspective, in one idea. But if you have several ideas or several different perspectives, what becomes a community, then there's growth for everybody. We can learn so much from each other. And I look at my life and my ways of doing things, of conducting myself, and what I've learned from others has really shaped that, and it shaped the way I think and the way I feel and just the way I move within this world that I live in. I love going to different places and seeing different cultures and experiencing different things, and seeing different beautiful things of the world. I love it. Whether it's different countries, different cities, different states, different areas of the same city. You know, I love it all. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, but I appreciate it all and I can learn from it. And there are things that I've needed to experience, that I've needed to see, that I've needed so I can learn from it. Because we can teach each other so much, and I think about different like people groups that I've even been in and around, and all of these things have added so much to my life and to my thinking, and I feel like I've grown in so many different ways, learning from others, and from that, I'll give you some examples. When I was when I went to Panama uh, with a group, we went to this this orphanage for special needs children, but we also went to a organization run orphanage. It was run by the Catholic Church, and we went to a statewide state-run orphanage run by the government, and it was very interesting to see the differences in those different orphanages, and you could see the care that was given in those different spaces. And whether it was because of the lack of funds, the lack of resources, or just, honestly, just the lack of care and concern, um, but it was so interesting because you could just imagine the children that grew up in those orphanages for however long they were there, what an impact those times would make on the development of their lives. And it was so interesting to see because what some people would think would be that the orphanage for the special needs children, who usually had some form of physical deficit or mental deficit or both. There were children with cerebral palsy or other developmental physical challenges that they would have. There were children with mental challenges, mental delays, mental deficits there, and you would think that would be such a place that was so sad, but it was so loving and so caring, and these children were so cared for, and they were treated with therapy to help them, and you could see how they were growing and how they were learning and how they were healing. It was just amazing. But then, and you would see the Catholic supported charity or orphanage, and you would see how they would have funds, maybe not as much, maybe not as many resources as the other, but you could see that they had more capabilities than the orphanage that was run by the government, and just those disparities you could see, but you could learn so much. And I remember being at the orphanage that was run by the government, and there was this this lady that was developmentally delayed. And so because of that, she acted like a child. And because of that, her joy, I can still hear her laughter when she was playing with some of the toys that we brought and the things that we had there. And there was this little car that was for small children, and she would get on it and she would just roll down the hill and she would laugh and scream and be so excited. And I mean, those kinds of things, those kinds of experiences are priceless. And I remember when I went to Ghana and the joy that I saw on the faces of those individuals, they were very simple. They didn't have all of the luxuries that we have in this country, but there was so much joy, and you could tell that they just loved each other, that they cared about each other. They would gather and talk about things, and it was just so wonderful to see in a place where they didn't have all of the things that we have and all the abilities that we have and we're used to over here. But yet I guarantee you they had a lot more joy in that one space than we have in a lot of spaces in this country that's so developed and so has so many opportunities. And so those things are really good to see and good to experience, and you learn so much about life. I feel like I learned so much about life in those places, but also, I've had the opportunity to be in different people groups and different people that think differently than I do or act differently than I do, and people in different organizations, and I've gotten to speak with people, with so many different people from so many walks of life, and it's just been so amazing, and so many of my friends are from different countries, and just listening to and observing the cultural differences and the way they think and the way they act and the way they feel, the way they express themselves, it just brings such a multifaceted beauty to things and to the things that we've shared and the experiences we've shared, and it's helped me to develop things and develop my own beliefs and ideas and ways of doing things by integrating their beliefs and ideas and ways of doing things. And it just adds such richness and such a depth to your life and in your experiences and to the person that you are. And it just brings so much empathy and compassion and caring, so much joy. I can't begin to think about my life without these friends, without these people, people that I work with, people that I have worked with, the relationships that have developed from those experiences. And I've got a multitude of friends that I've worked with throughout the years, and they're still my friends, and they're still very dear friends. We're still incredibly close. So so it's interesting to see, and it's something that I can't imagine being without. And my heart breaks for each person that feels like their way is the only way and their ideas are the only ideas, and they only want to be around people that are very similar to themselves. And my heart breaks for them because that's such a narrow-minded, judgmental way to be. And you're not going to grow from that. You're not going to learn from that. You're not going to experience so many different things in life. And I mean, in my way of thinking, you're going to have such a sad existence because you're only going to know one thing. You're only going to know one way. When there's so much beauty out there and there's so many other ways. And I think about my friends that are trans and all of my friends of the LGBTQ plus community and what I've learned from them and what I've learned both from their pain, but also their joy and the love that they bring into this world. It's amazing. And sure, all these different people that I'm speaking of, I may never experience or fully understand the things that they're going through or the way they think or the way they interpret the world. But I can get an idea. I can get a glimpse. They can share with me their experiences. They can share with me those things, and I'm able to understand better. I'm able to understand their thoughts and feelings better. And it just makes you more human. The more compassion and the more empathy you have for individuals, the more human you are. And the more love you can give. And I feel like that's why we're all put on this earth, is to give love and to receive love and to experience love. And what better way than to get to know people, to get to learn from people? I just think it's such a beautiful thing. And not even thinking about people from other countries or people that may look different from you. But I think about all of the people that I know that believe differently than I do spiritually. I have friends that are Muslim. I have friends that are Jewish. I have friends that are agnostic. I have friends that are atheists. I have friends that are witches. I have friends that are Hindu. I have friends with so many different beliefs and religions and spirituality. And I love it. I have decided to follow Jesus. I don't like to call myself a Christian anymore. It just feels so wrong to do that at this moment in time. And so I don't. But I do believe in God and I do follow Jesus. But I love my friends that have different beliefs than I do, because they add so much to my life. Seeing the ways and the beliefs and the ideas of and the spirituality of people from different religions and different perspectives, it just adds so much richness to your life. I have friends that are Buddhists and friends that are that have indigenous religious beliefs, and it's so beautiful. I've been in synagogues. I've been in mosques. I've been in Hindu temples. I've been to Buddhist temples, and the experience of being there is priceless. And I'm so grateful to those individuals that invited me into those spaces, and trusted me enough to invite me into those spaces and allow me there, because I learned so much. The world is so beautiful, and there's so much beauty around, and spirituality, and the way people bring that and incorporate that into their cultures. And a lot of times, I think people in various religions are made to fear or dislike people from other religions, or not necessarily dislike, but alienate themselves from people of different religions. But you have to be open. You have to be open to people of different spiritual practices than you, because I feel like most spiritual texts, even though I'm not familiar with a lot of them, but I'm definitely familiar with the Bible. I've read the Bible several times, cover to cover. So, and I've studied it a lot. And I never see in there, within its pages, where it says to hate someone because of their religion. Because God never says, hate those that don't follow me. Jesus never walked on this earth, to my knowledge, from what I've read. And Jesus never said, hate those that do not follow me. And that's the thing. I feel like now, in certain spaces, in certain groups, in certain religious practices of various kinds, that people try and alienate themselves from others, and try and say that they're superior to others. And I just don't think that's a good practice at all. I think that we're all humans. We just may believe differently. We may have different spiritual practices. We may have different religions, but we're all human beings. And we're all important to this world, and we all can learn from each other. Nobody is saying that if you follow one religion or religious practice, that you can't be with other people from other religious practices. I mean, nobody's saying that. I don't know. I don't know where that's said anywhere. And I don't know where it's said that I may follow Jesus, but because I follow Jesus, I cannot enter a mosque. Or because I follow Jesus. I cannot have any friends that are Hindu. I don't I I don't believe that, and I don't see that anywhere. So I think that it's a fabulous thing to do to just learn, educate yourself about other religions, other cultures, because just because I read about another religion, just because I read other spiritual texts, does not mean that I'm going to follow those. And I feel like that is what people need to understand from all religious backgrounds and spiritual practices. And if you want to have that idea and that belief system, that's totally up to you. I'm just expressing my belief system, and I've read some of the Quran. I've read some of the Torah. I've read some Hindu spiritual texts, and other things. And I just find it fascinating. I just find all of it fascinating. And so I just want to express that whole idea of us learning from each other and experiencing things with each other and growing with each other and learning from each other, because I think it's so unfortunate that people will look at groups of other people and just immediately decide, well, I don't want to hear them. I don't want to be around them. I don't want to experience anything with that individual, because again, that person is a them and I am an us. It's so unfortunate, because if we're a we can learn from each other and experience beautiful things together. And I just think about that in my life. And, I love a good drag show. And I think about, the things that I've learned from going to drag shows, and the people that I've met, the things that have been shared, and the way that people have let me into their world in those spaces. And it's really remarkable. I know in one instance, the queen was talking, and she was saying that, she only dressed in drag for a show, and it was because when she was on stage, she felt confident, and she felt like she was able to do things and able to be who she wanted to be. And she said she had extreme social anxiety, and the more she did drag shows, the more it helped her to overcome the anxiety. Now, in real life, outside of the drag show, she was a man, and she lived as a man, but and she lived as a very anxious man, but when when there was a drag show, she was very confident. And so she was trying to transfer that confidence back to her real life and combat the social anxiety. And I found that a very interesting perspective. And it helped me to understand. And so many other things that have helped me to understand, different ways of being, different ways of thinking, because people share their stories, people share their experiences, and it's amazing. It's all so amazing. Life is beautiful if you will let yourself live it. It's a beautiful experience if you let yourself. And I have been extremely fortunate in the opportunities that have been presented to me and the way that people have let me into their life. And I invite you to do that. I feel like even if you don't necessarily take that first step, to actually go up to people, to let people in that are different than you, educate yourself. Don't just judge. Don't just judge a person because of these specific groups that we as a society have put them in, or physical attributions that are characteristics that we see, like skin color or nationality or gender, but actually educate yourself, read, help yourself to understand. I feel like that's such a part of things. People tend to judge people, come up with ideas, and they base things on what others say or what they've been taught, but they don't question. They don't question these things. They just blindly follow or blindly believe. But I invite you to educate yourself, read stories, read things. I read this one essay about the atom bomb that dropped on Hiroshima, and it was very powerful. It went through the day and the just everyday life of these, I think 4 different individuals that I'm thinking of, and their emotions and what they saw and what they experienced. And it was just very powerful when I was reading it. And it just brought a whole new perspective to that event. So I would suggest for you to read about events, about cultures, about different beliefs. Just educate yourself before you form an opinion, before you form an idea, before you form a belief system about a whole entire group of people. Educate yourself. I was reading a children's book yesterday, actually, and it's called The Very Hungry Spider. I highly recommend it. The pictures are very entertaining too. I think the art of the book is amazing, but the story is very powerful, I think. There's this big spider, and it spins a web. It's so hungry, and it spins a web, and it catches a fly in the web, and it comes out, and it's excited about what it's going to eat, and then it sees this a fly, and it says, "Oh no, this like a bee or some other bug would have been such a treat, but I don't eat flies." And so it goes back away. And then the next day it spins this web, and another fly comes in and flies into it. And it says the same thing. And this goes on for days. And this spider is getting hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. And then, but it says, "I will not eat a fly. I'll eat all these other bugs, grasshoppers, bees, different bugs, but I will not eat a fly." And then finally, the spider is very sick, very hungry. It can't do anything. It has no energy to do anything, but it goes out, and this fly that's stuck in the web says, "Why don't you like flies?" It actually, the fly questions, "Why don't you like flies?" And the spider can't give a reason because it's never had a fly. It's just prejudged, and it's had this whole belief system that's built up in it because it just doesn't like flies, but it's never tried a fly. And as that spider's sitting there just wasting away because it's being so stubborn, it's being so close-minded, the fly says, why don't you try us? Well, you might like eating us." So the spider finally says, "Okay, fine," and goes over there because the spider's desperate. It has no other options. It's either eat a fly or die. What do you have to lose? That's basically what that fly is saying. Don't judge us. And so the spider eats the fly, and it gains strength, and it says, "Oh, that fly wasn't as bad as I thought it was. That was not as bad as I assumed it would be, as I judged it to be, as I thought it would be when I tried it." And then from that day on, the spider ate nothing but flies because the spider thought that was the best. And the moral of the story is don't judge. Don't form these ideas about things that you don't even know. And that's my point. My point is that it seems like right now, especially, that people are blindly following these ideas and beliefs without trying, without educating themselves, without knowing the whole story or the whole experience. And people are judging people so much and saying, this is a world of us and them. We are good, the us is good, and the them is so bad. You don't want to get around the them. You don't want to be in the same area as the them, or even talk to them, or even think about them. You don't want to do that. It's so harmful. But then when it becomes a we learn, we experience love, we experience all of these different things. We learn, we grow together. We also have negative things that happen, but there's a we to support us. There's a we to care. There's a we to support. There's a we to grow. And so I invite you just like the very hungry spider. I invite you to try things. Find something that you're curious about. Find something that you want to learn. You want to learn about a specific country. You want to learn about a specific ethnicity, about a specific culture, you want to learn more about people with certain difficulties, with certain illnesses. You want to learn more about people with with mental health challenges. You want to learn about people with physical disabilities, or you want to learn more about people with brain injury. You want to learn more about people who have certain spiritual practices, who follow certain religions. You want to learn more about people in our LGBTQ plus communities. You want to explore different ideas. I invite you to do that, even if it's not to meet with people, but to read different texts and read different articles, read different poems, look at art expressed by these groups of individuals. But I just invite you to do something, and I challenge you to do something, just to see things from a different perspective and to see things from a different point of view and to get ideas. Then you can make an informed decision. Then you can, if you feel like you have to judge, if you feel like you have to isolate yourself, then you can do that if you so choose, because we all have that freedom of choice. But we can't make informed decisions about things if we don't have the education and knowledge to do that. So I invite you to do that. Be around people that are different than you. It's been some of the best experiences of my life to be around those individuals that are different than me, and I always welcome that. I always want to learn more and to do more. So thank you for joining us today, and I invite you to go to my Substack at Melody Parrish, look at what I write, listen to previous episodes, drop me a line, let's start a conversation. I'd love to hear from you. And just remember that you do not have to suffer alone.